Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. Over the last couple of weeks, our calls have necessarily had to deal with the political implications of what's going on not only globally in the United States, but of course our major concern, which is what's happening in Iraq and with the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. And that's not going to change. Things are occurring quickly. And so unfortunately, I'm really going to be winging it on this call. I've been on the phone constantly over the last week. Friends in Washington, D.C. There's a lot going on. Before I get into that, I will touch on the situation in Iraq. But, and I hope this is for the last time, I'm not going to get into a detailed explanation of the program we've put in place or a Q&A today. I've got a lot of unanswered questions that I'm working with as well. But I'm going to refer our newer callers to our call of December 16th, because that call has all of the information about our program and has a nice Q&A in there as well. But I want to go ahead and get into a discussion about what's going on first in Iraq. By way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves. We want to share with you the information we think is relevant. Of course, what's of major concern to those of us holding the dinar and these other currencies is the window for the potential reinstitution of the dinar. Obviously, January didn't happen, but we still think that the first quarter or perhaps early April is a very viable time frame. Now, why is this the case? What's going on in Iraq? Well, unfortunately, the CBI has not yet begun their national education program, which they wanted to run for approximately 30 days before the reinstitution of the dinar in country, nor have they completed the project to complete the zeros. The Parliament is scheduled for final passage of their budget on or around February 1st. Now, with the passage of that budget, it's based on their current program rate for their dinar, which not only is substantially undervalued, but has even lost more value against the U.S. dollar. However, the fact that the budget is going to be passed does not mean that the reinstitution of the dinar is therefore going to be postponed until next January. The passage of the budget merely means that it's a snapshot of where they are right now. Now, what they tried to do last year in the anticipation of passing, reinstituting their currency, was passing the budget but trying to avoid actual expenditures. Now, with the passage of the budget, even if they make expenditures at the current rate of the dinar, they can still adjust the budget based on the reinstituted rate. However, that's a difficult process. The more likely possibility would be that even though they pass the budget, they will try as best as they can to defer making payments at the program rate within the budget, so that they can just basically make a mathematical calculation and then begin to make expenditures based on the reinstituted rate. Now, there are a lot of things that are of concern to the people that have our trust. I'm contacted constantly about it. They're concerned that we seem to be in limbo with regard to the direction of the United States, which they think will have a direct effect on the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar. That's a very legitimate concern. So I want to kind of touch on that. One of the reasons this is a truncated call, as I mentioned earlier, I've been on the phone a lot with my friends in D.C. I spent a lot of my life in the Baltimore, D.C. corridor. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. I know a lot of the individuals that are politicians in Washington. I know a lot of individuals that work for lobbying firms. And there is an absolute knife fight going on in Washington, D.C. right now. I have my own beliefs about what's going to happen, but to the extent that they're my opinion, I'm going to try to keep them to myself and discuss the various scenarios that could happen and how that will affect the reinstitution of the dinar. There are basically two options. One is that somehow, some way, Donald Trump will be reinstalled as the President of the United States, or Joe Biden, despite legitimate questions about the integrity of the election, is the duly elected president. And how does either of those scenarios affect the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar? Well, we know that if for any reason Donald Trump were reinstituted, he's going to be very proactive. He was in the process basically of bankrupting the Western Central Bank system. He was in the process of issuing the new United States note, which was a gold-backed, a commodity-backed currency. He was interested in sound money. He folded the Federal Reserve into the Treasury, and he was appointing individuals that were going to husband this thing through. But even if Joe Biden ends up as president after all the dust has settled, we're still in a fairly good position. Now, Joe Biden will not be proactive. He's not proactive about anything. He's reactive. In my opinion, he's just doing what he's told. As an example, he has signed 30 executive orders in his first week in office. That's more executive orders than the preceding 5 presidents signed in the first week in office. There's no human being that literally could cut through all of the information necessary to write an executive order of the magnitude involved. So obviously there's a lot in play. But remember, Joe Biden is a Democrat. He used to be a left-of-center politician. Now he is a left-wing politician, which means he's a globalist. And that means he's working with the international agencies, one of which is the IMF. The IMF desperately wants the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar for a couple of reasons. They do want to see the economy grow, but they want to depeg the dinar from the U.S. dollar, and they want to repeg it with the IMF basket of currencies. So for their own selfish reasons, they want to see this get done. Now, why do I say we're in a state of limbo? Well, let's take a look at what's happening right now. Donald Trump is in the process, as we speak, of being impeached. Now, constitutional scholars on both the left and the right have stated explicitly that to impeach a private citizen, a former or ex-president, is unconstitutional. So why would the Democrats be attempting to impeach who is, in essence, according to them, a private citizen? Well, the first reason could probably be that they want to discredit the man because they know that if he's not, in fact, reinstalled as president, he's not going to be silent, and he has information that they basically don't want disseminated. But I think there's a second reason that this is happening. I think that the Democrats are either know or are concerned that pursuant to U.S. Code 11.3, I refer to that again. You can Google it for yourselves. U.S. Code 11.3. Donald Trump may, in fact, still be the president of the United States. And on the off chance that that's a possibility, the Democrats want him impeached, and they want him tried and removed from office. So we're in a very precarious situation in the United States, and that's why things like the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar, which are very important to us, for obvious reasons are on the back burner along with a lot of other important issues. This is where we find ourselves. But I just want to reiterate again, whether Donald Trump is reinstalled as president or whether Joe Biden remains in the White House despite legitimate concerns about the election, from our perspective, and for very different reasons, I still think that the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar will occur. One other thing I'll mention. If you go back 100 years to the reinstitution and or revaluation of currencies going back to the German Deutschmark right after World War I, there are 3 months where these reinstitutions or revaluations have occurred. The month of January, the month of April, for whatever reason, and the month of September. So the reinstitution of the dinar in the first quarter and its revaluation in April are entirely plausible scenarios. That's where we find ourselves today. And that's the basis of why I'm still optimistic about the revaluation. I'm also optimistic about what, in my opinion, is going to happen over the next 2 to 4 weeks in this country. I don't want to get into the specifics. I don't want to get into the weeds with politics. We have Dinarians that are of all political persuasions, and so I have to respect that. But I think that the reinstitution of Donald Trump, if that were to occur, would mean a lot of things. It would mean that the reinstitution would occur. It would mean that the economy would continue to grow. It would mean that we'd be looking at commodity-backed currencies. It would mean that the Federal Reserve would no longer be able to print their debt instrument, and we would have a sound currency. All of these things are very good for the world and the country. So that's basically where we find ourselves. Now, irrespective of the situation with the revaluation, I would also refer you to the Constitution of the United States. It's important to establish the trust, and again, for those of you that are calling for the first time, I will refer you to our call of December 16th to learn more about the program we've established and why it's important that you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of the dinar and some of these other currencies. But I will also refer you to the Constitution of the United States. First, I would refer you to the contract clause, which you will find in Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. And the creation of a self-settled irrevocable trust like ours is a private contract. That contract will protect your privacy. It will protect your assets, not only from civil litigation, but from civil forfeiture from the government. And pursuant to Section 643B of the IRS Code, it might allow the profit from this exchange to be tax deferred, an issue which we will press the IRS on once the currency is reinstated in country. So for all of these reasons, it's important you establish a trust to protect your assets if you have currencies, and if you want to protect your assets if things don't go well and we end up with an authoritarian government with high regulations and high taxes. Establishing trust to protect your privacy and your assets would be even more important in that situation. In addition, you could establish offshore trusts to provide additional protection, all legal, and we would never suggest anyone do anything that's illegal or even questionable. Everything that we suggest individuals do is clearly legal, clearly settled law, right down Main Street legally. This is basically the information I wanted to provide for today. I'm going to get right back on the phone. I'm talking to a lot of individuals. The situation right now is kind of quiet and may seem calm. The analogy people in my profession always make is the swan on the lake. On the surface, it seems very calm, and the swan seems to be gliding along effortlessly, when in fact, under the water, the feet are moving furiously. And that's exactly what's going on in Washington right now. The players that are involved, the stakes that are involved are extremely high. And so for myself personally, as well as for my family and for all of our clients, I'm doing the best I can to try to get the most updated information that I can. But it's a very fluid situation, and there's a lot of moving parts. But again, I'm still confident that whichever way this goes and however it affects our country, we are still in a good position to see the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar, because this is a global issue. Whether for the right reason or wrong reason, I think we are in a good position to see these currencies increase substantially in value. So again, thanks for listening to the call. And one last time, if you're a newer caller, I strongly suggest you go to our call of December 16th. You can go to YouTube and Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and then go to Trusts Unlimited and get that information. Thanks again for listening to the call, and I'm going to really try from this point forward to have a complete call next week and in the ongoing weeks where we discuss the program in detail and then go to a Q&A. So have a great week, everyone. We'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Bye-bye.